Greetings all, and welcome to Dave's Craft Room. I'm Dave, and on today's video, I have here an Elna Supermatic sewing machine from 1952, and I'm gonna make a quilt on it. This is, first of all, very heavy. This is an Elna Supermatic, and I have been obsessed with this machine ever since I saw it on social media 2 years ago. The reason is it's incredible. I finally found this on eBay, and this was only $100, although it was also $150 because I had to pay $50 to ship something so heavy. But that's okay. $150 honestly is not bad. I'm obsessed with this machine. I set it up last night to test it out and it works amazing. There was just like a couple of things wrong, like the lever to bring up the foot was like off and a couple of other things. But other than that, it worked amazing. Oh, so let me just tell you what's going on in this video though. I'm gonna introduce you to this machine and then I'm gonna piece a quilt. I found a pattern that I wanna use this to make. So this is the Elna Supermatic Swiss engineering from 1952. Oh, I'm gonna open this because this case is about to turn into a table. Oh. So the thing about it is this cosmetically, it's really just the paint and stuff that's chipping off. It's actually in great condition as far as it working. And it's amazing. When I turned it on yesterday, I thought it didn't sound good, but I've watched literally every video on YouTube. It sounds the way it's supposed to sound. So what's so special about this machine? A number of things. Number one, it has this is the knee bar, okay? My sewing machine has a knee bar lift, a knee lift. This is essentially the foot pedal, how you make it run. I'm excited to try it. I mean, I did try it yesterday, but not properly. So that's that. And then what you pretty much have here is this comes up and you can put cams in there. This was one of the earliest machines you could get for your home that actually had a zigzag stitch and various other, there's over 100, I think, different cams. This is the actual cam that's in there. I'm not gonna take it out. So for me, when I bought this machine on eBay, it didn't come with any cams but this one cam that's in there. And the cam that's in there is number 3, the zigzag stitch. And realistically, that's the only cam I actually want. You know, I have my Singer up there that I use. I use that for the zigzag stitch only. Theoretically, I have it for all of the other fancy stitches that it does as well, but I can't recall ever using any of those. I might have tested a couple of them once, but I only ever use the zigzag, and even the zigzag, I might use it once a year. I pretty much use my Brother PQ 1500 SL for everything else, and it doesn't have any fancy stitches. So for this version of the Elna Supermatic, you actually need a special tool to pop that cam up. The other version of this, the two-tone one, the two-color one, has a spring-loaded thing, but this one doesn't have it. This one has a special tool that you pry it up. I think I probably could figure out a way to pry the cam out without that tool, but I don't want to risk breaking it because that's the only cam I have and that's the only cam I want, and I'm just going to let it live there forever. I'm not going to take it out. I'm going to use that zigzag stitch in today's project. Then what we have, this is the bobbin winder. I tested it yesterday. It works great. You know, pull this over to wind the bobbin. And then you have here the stitch length. This, I believe, is the width of the zigzag. If I have it on 0, it will just be a straight stitch. It won't be a zigzag at all. It won't be using the cam at all. So that's why I can let it live there, because I can do the straight stitch if I want, or I can do the zigzag by moving it. Just wait until I plug this in. By the way, there's a light bulb under there which works. It didn't turn on yesterday, and then I tried to take it out to see if I could replace the light bulb, and it came on. So it works. This is the table. Watch this. This was also one of the earliest machines to have this free arm right here where you could, so you could like put jeans in there or like the sleeves in there. And then it just slides right in. And we have a table. Stunning. Let me put it over here. Oh, there we go. That clips into there. Now it won't move. As I make today's project, I'll kind of show you a little bit more of it working. So speaking of that, let's introduce what I'm going to make on today's video. I have this magazine clipping here from 1970 something. I want to say 74, but I forget. And this is a, to me, very vintage looking mushroom quilt. I'm going to put a picture of this up on the screen. You can also click the link below. I'm going to scan it in. Let's read this because honestly, this to me is so bizarre what has been written here. And I am very much like, don't tell me to do things a different way. Like, I'm going to do it the way I'm going to do it. So I don't mean to be a hypocrite when I talk about why they're doing it this way in this thing. I'm just trying to understand why you would make a quilt this way. But let me just read it because let's get into it. Quickie quilting. Barbara Taylor says, we call this section quickie quilting. For some time, I've been working on several original designs with the idea of presenting them to you as quickie quilting, which simply means use your sewing machine. Here are my favorites with patterns and instructions. I hope my ideas will spark a few of your own. So that, first of all, let's unpack that because she says quickie quilting, which simply means use your sewing machine. And this was written in the 70s. And to me, using your sewing machine is a given. We're going to use the sewing machine. Yeah, I mean, I do some hand piecing, and people out there do hand piecing. They do a fantastic job. There's lots of people on social media doing hand sewing. But that doesn't change the fact that the vast, vast majority of quilters are using their machines for almost all of their quilting. You know what I mean? I do English paper piecing by hand, and I've made a couple of quilts just by hand. But again, probably 99% of my work is by machine. This came out in the 70s. If you would have asked me, I would have thought that that would have been the case by the 70s. Because I think sewing machines were so ubiquitous, even more households had sewing machines in the 70s than now. So I'm very curious, those of you that were around during this era, and particularly that were sewing during this era, was it normal to use your sewing machine to piece the quilt, or was everybody doing it by hand? And when did that kind of change from the standard is like you're probably going to use your sewing machine versus doing it by hand? I'm very curious to know when that changed. Okay, so let's keep going. The popular mushroom design can be adapted to pillows or a full-size quilt. Start with a white sheet to fit your bed as quilt top. Another sheet works well as backing. Red and blue fabric or your own color combination. Cut blue squares and applique onto the white. Fill the two sheets with batting and overall quilt in a square pattern on your machine. Okay, that is a lot to unpack. First of all, I want to say she said the popular mushroom design. I actually looked online to see if I could find this design anywhere else, and I could not find it. So that's why I want to ask y'all, was this popular? Have you seen this design before? If so, I want to know about it because I really like this quilt, and I want to know if it exists out in the world. And then let's get into it. So she says start with a white sheet to fit your bed as quilt top. Now, I've used sheets before. My kind of rule is, of course you can use a sheet. It's America. You can do whatever you want. Not all sheets are created equal. So I like to use a flannel sheet or a t-shirt jersey sheet. I use these as backings. And honestly, if you want to do it, why not? Most of the sheets today are this kind of polyester that I really don't care for and really don't like to sew with. So I probably wouldn't use that, although I have used it before, but I won't use it again. What she's suggesting that you do here is basically take the background color of your blocks and applique it onto the sheet instead of piecing it in. And I don't get it. I don't want to be disrespectful to Ms. Barbara Taylor. I'm sure she knows what she's talking about. I'm just trying to understand in what world that's faster or easier or quickie quilting than cutting sashing. And I understand that they wouldn't have had the rotary cutter. This rotary cutter and the rulers makes very quick work of cutting the sashing. But I still don't think that this would be faster. Even if you would have to cut out the long strips with a scissor, you can probably cut out 2 or up to maybe 4 at a time and piece it in. That to me is faster. Maybe I'm naive. Maybe I don't know. That's just my opinion. I would like to know what you think about the concept of basically just appliquing your quilt blocks onto a background. I shouldn't judge because there's lots of different ways to make a quilt. So if that's a way that people like to do it, then by all means. But honestly, the way I'm talking right now exposes, I think, that I do find it a little bit weird. And I hope that's not disrespectful. I just think it's too weird. And by the way, I'm not going to do it. I honestly originally thought like maybe I should follow this directly and do it like that, but I just can't bring myself to do it. I need to piece the quilt like a normal person. But let's go on. Let's keep reading. Enlarge the mushroom patterns number 200 on page 26. I have it here. Cut out and applique stems of white to blue background. Then cut out and add red caps onto that. White dots on large mushroom caps can be cut out of the same white as stems and added. Or if red fabric with large white polka dots can be found, this looks great. This is another issue I have. To me, it's going to be easier to applique onto the quilt blocks and then piece them in rather than having your whole quilt top and trying to applique onto that whole quilt top. Actually, it's not just the quilt top, you're appliquing onto the entire quilt, especially if I would use this. But even if I would use my bigger brother, it would be very difficult for me to maneuver that giant quilt under the machine to applique. And I would do it, and I've done things like that before, but when I do it, it's a very small, just one thing that I want to applique on. I'm not doing the whole quilt like that because that would just be too much. It's too heavy. I would get tired moving the quilt and trying to maneuver it into the machine and stuff. And I think most people would feel that way. So that's another reason why I'm questioning this. I talked about this with my mom, and she said that basically you would do this because you want to quilt it first and then have the mushrooms on top, go through the quilting. I still find it easier to quilt it afterwards, I think. I applique them first onto the blocks and then quilt it afterwards. That's just my view, and that's how I'm going to do it. And then I thought maybe they think you're going to do hand applique, needle turn, in which case, sure, but it actually has applique instructions here, and it says, using your buttonhole stitch on your zigzag sewing machine, applique cut out pieces to background with same color thread, basting first with an open zigzag stitch. Then go over with close zigzag or satin stitch. Trim threads. Machine stitches should run at right angles to the fabric. Lift the presser foot often to turn fabric around corners and curves. Experiment on scraps of same fabric before using actual piece. So she does instruct people to use their zigzag machine, which I have. I tested it last night. Where's test piece? Here it is. Honestly, this zigzag stitch is so satisfying. It's not like a typical zigzag stitch, which is literally this. It's literally sewing a zigzag. And I played with it a little bit last night just doing this. I actually couldn't get it super tight. Realistically, I would want to get it tighter. But when you see the way it does it, how satisfying it is, like, I'm confident that it's going to keep the fabric down. Matter of fact, it's going to probably do a better job of keeping the fabric down than modern ones. So one thing I want to say is as I am shook at these instructions, I can tell you that it might have been popular at one time to do it this way. Maybe because it was difficult to cut the sashing out and piece it in, I don't know. But I've mentioned on my channel before Chris O'Neill's series, Lessons from an Old Quilt, where she looks at old quilts, and she has on there a quilt where the 9-patch blocks are appliqued onto a solid background. I'm going to put a link to that video below so you can see that. I mean, she confesses, I'm not trying to tell stories outside of school, but she confesses in the video that she doesn't really care for the quilt. I kind of felt the same way, but I was fascinated by it, by the method, by the choices that they made. I'm very curious to hear from y'all. What is your view on making quilt blocks and then appliquing them onto a background rather than piecing them in? If you were around in the 70s, was that done? Was it done often? Was it a common method? Please tell us in the comments. Other than that, let's get started. And I landed on this 7-inch block. The instructions actually have you double this size, which would be like kind of a 9.5-inch block. I decided to increase it by 75%. We're going to have a 7-inch block with the mushroom on it. And these patterns, there's instructions on here to enlarge it with a grid. This was something we used to do in art class where you can make a grid and then it's easier to draw and enlarge it with the grid. I'm going to use technology since I have it at my disposal. Pretty much I can enlarge it on here and use a ruler to make sure it's the size that I want. And then I just traced it, literally. I mean, that's bigger than what I decided to do, but I traced it. So I have my fabric here. This is white for the background, which I'm going to piece the sashing. These are going to be the blue blocks. And then I have this small polka dot red for the small mushrooms here, and then these larger polka dots for these mushrooms. So step one is going to be to cut it. Once I get into the sewing, I'll show you up close the Elna Supermatic working. So let's just first cut everything out. I'll probably just not show it. I'm literally just gonna cut out squares. I don't feel like filming it. Okay, cool. All right, people, we're here at the sewing machine, and I can now show you that this is the stitch length going forward and going backward. These are the stops. And then in here, that's the zigzag cam that I have, the one that I have. And to take it out, you gotta take off this screw, and then there's like a tool that goes in there to pop it out. And like I said, I'm leaving it on. I have it set where I want it right now, where this is on 2. This is affecting the width of the zigzag. And this is just barely on above 0, because I want them super close together. And then, watch, I'll show you. I have my knee down here. You can't see it on the bar, but it is on the bar. It gets threaded around the back. There's a loop back here. And then these are the tension discs right here. And then through the take up lever, and then through this other loop and another loop, and then from the needle front to back. And then here we go. Sounds like a lawnmower. Oh, there's not like a cutter anywhere on it, I don't believe. So I'm gonna have to use that. Look at that. That's what happens when I put it on number 3. You see, these are stitches. That's not like a normal zigzag. See what I mean? And if I bring this up to 2, well, let's start it with 1 better first. Can you see how it does the zigzag? It's crazy. All right, I'm gonna now try to do this. Oh, I wanted this on 0.5. No, 0.25 really. Oh, I said earlier that the light bulb still works. It actually doesn't work anymore. It literally already went out. All right, you know what? It looks a little crunchy. Not gonna lie. It looks very crunchy, and I kind of hope that as I go along, I can get better at it, or I'm gonna try making some different adjustments. But at the end of the day, this is gonna keep it on. Like, that's not going anywhere. You know what I mean? And so if they look like that, maybe that's a style. Cool. So let me just piece a bunch more now. All right, I suppose this is gonna be the most tedious part, but I'm doing now the applique on these and these. I'm gonna do like alternate because this is easy, this is a lot more tedious. So just to sort of get myself through it, I'm gonna applique them alternatingly. The way that this sews means that I don't have to put a sheet of paper under it because it just, I don't know why, but it just works. I don't need to. Okay, I'm gonna finish up off camera. You know, the repetition, when I'm making a video, the repetition is not always terribly interesting, so I'm gonna finish doing these off camera. I am piecing the fashion strips on now. Piecing, not appliquing them onto the background. I am piecing them. Now that I'm on the straight stitch, it's wild how fast it goes. Okay, great, let's sew it up. I want to get an idea of how big it's gonna be. 68 inches, so it'll be smaller than that, but this is a guesstimate, 79 inches. I want to put a white on the side of these blocks now, rather than doing it at the end. All right, now since they're all just square blocks, it's gonna be easy, hopefully, and quick to chain piece the rows together. So that's what I'm gonna do now. I don't know why I needed to put those back up. All right, it's a 5. It's the 70s. It's groovy. It's mushrooms. Let's see how much it weighs. No, how big it is. 67 inches by 75 inches. Okay, work. And I have over here, this will be the backing. And then I have my Dream Green recycled Coke bottle or recycled plastic bottle batting. And I'm gonna quilt it on the Elna Supermatic. So let's get into it. All right, I finished quilting it and we're now ready to trim it. I did have to do a little bit piecemeal on the backing. Where's my ruler? Oh, it's out here. And then I have a blue somewhere. Oh, it's over there. I have a blue that I'm going to use for the binding, which I will do right meow, and then we will be done. It's going to be so good to actually get this done and wash it. I love the washing it because then I can get rid of the lines, the whatever marks I had to draw on there. I drew the mushrooms on each one of these. Would like to get those marks off and see what it actually looks like. Cool, so that's about it. We're almost done. I just tried to reverse with that. I only have one bobbin, so I could not constantly be changing colors on the bottom. The back is gonna have this bright white thread visible, and I don't care. It just is what it is. I mean, look how bright it is on the back. Ideally, I would not have that, but I can't constantly change the bobbin thread out. I really need to take my time. This is when I do the binding, this is where I tend to make most mistakes because I'm so eager to get the quilt done that I rush. Try not to do that. Oh! Hey, what? Oh no, my needle broke! I have to change the needle out. It broke because I somehow pulled on the thread while it went down, and then the needle caught on the presser foot and it broke. It's alright, I have more needles. That was a new needle. I replaced it when we started this project. Look at, that's horrible. Flat bit goes towards the back. And by the way, I don't do a mitered corner either. I've never been a huge fan of the miter. The only time I do a miter is when I'm giving the quilt to other people because other people like it. All right, everyone, that's the wrap on the Elna Supermatic quilt, which I have chosen to hang behind me now. And now that I have the sewtites magnets, it's super easy for me to change those out. So the final verdict is that this machine worked great. They really don't make machines like they used to. There's a couple of things, features that I'm used to that it doesn't have that made it kind of difficult. And the main feature I use all the time is really this needle down position. When you stop, the needle's always in the down position when you have this selected. This doesn't have that, so the needle's wherever it was when it stopped. So that made it kind of hard when I was doing the applique or really doing anything to stop and start because sometimes the fabric moved. And so I had to be careful with that. The knee bar is always a fascinating thing. You know, my knee bar here, I was like trying to load some bobbins up earlier and I was trying to make it go with this knee bar. And I was like, why isn't my bobbin loading like it's supposed to? Oh yes, because this has a foot pedal like a normal sewing machine. You also get the opposite on here where I'm like, let me try to lift the presser foot and then the machine starts going. So that was a challenge. But overall, this machine worked great. It worked exactly as it's supposed to. The zigzag stitch did a great job. Another challenge was the fact that I only own this one bobbin. So I had to keep refilling it up as I ran out. And of course it would run out in the least opportune times. But in general, I'm really satisfied with this Elna Supermatic. I'm gonna put it on a shelf out there and just leave it on display. Oh, you know what? I better clean in here first. We got some lint in there, but I'll do that later. All right, so that's gonna be a wrap on today's video. Thank you for coming to Dave's Craft Room. Remember to like and subscribe to my channel, and please come again.